Hi, this is Ady and welcome to another episode of Shirt of Our Years, which I've just filmed with our good friend Marcus Hancocks. I hope you're all staying well out there. I hope you enjoy this new episode and look forward to seeing you for the next one next week. See you in a bit. Bye. Hello and welcome to the second edition of Albion Raw Presents Shirt of Our Years, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Marcus Hancocks. Marcus, how are you holding up?
Yeah, all right, mate. Not too bad. Not too bad. Enjoying the sunshine indoors, but you know.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. Obviously, at the time of recording this, it's the Easter weekend. It's a time where we would normally be hanging out with family, going to the beach, having barbecues and stuff. It's a bit of a tricky time for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's difficult. You know, I think most people are actually adhering to the social distancing. From what I can see and read, I know the papers have been whipping up a bit of a frenzy about it, but I think overall people are adhering to it. Certainly from what I see on social media and various news reports when they're not using fake lenses to try and make places look more crowded than they are and stuff like that. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, how are you finding it? Obviously, you see your mum occasionally.
Yes.
It's a tricky time for everyone because I mean I'm very lucky where I am. I live right on the beach. I've got a nice garden, and we've got quite a lot of outside space. But for people that live in flats and in city centres and stuff, it must be pretty tricky.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, thankfully, where I am, I've got literally a Tesco and a Sainsbury's right next door. So if I need any bits, then I can literally make a late dash to there and social distance because it's only a couple of moments away. And I've got the beach near me as well. But I do feel for people who probably don't have a garden or are able to get to a park or something like that. Absolutely.
But let's face it. I mean, you're only going to buy pot noodles anyway, right?
I don't buy pot noodles anymore. I haven't for a long time.
Yeah, for those who don't know, back in the dark days of yore, myself and Marcus used to flat share together, and we had a cupboard, and it was color coordinated, Marcus, wasn't it? You had the chicken green ones and the beef and tomato ones. There must have been about 50 pot noodles in the cupboard, and I remember the first time that Erica came round, she said she looked in the cupboard and she's like, couldn't quite work out what was going on.
Yeah, well, in fairness, is when I got back from training, it was about 8:30, 9 o'clock. I couldn't be asked to make anything at that point unless you'd made something and put it in the dog for me. Then,
Marcus, let's get it back onto football. So have you actually missed the football yet?
If I'm being honest, not as much as I thought I would, which I know is probably a strange response. I don't know why. Maybe because I have been footballed out over the last few years. Maybe. So I'm kind of enjoying the sort of mid-season break, I guess, is the way to look at it. Not yet. Give it another month or two and I probably will. But right now, I'll be honest, I haven't. Strange as it may seem. I think it's probably because our form from January onwards has been not great. It's been well documented. We're the only team not to win in the Football League, I think, from January onwards. So actually, I'm not missing it at all right now, and that's probably because of, as I say, the form that we've been showing since the turn of the year, or even before the turn of the year, really.
I mean, generally, I think the actual performances on the pitch were okay. I mean, it was just the lack of cutting edge, really, wasn't it? It was causing the problems. And with the run of games that we had coming up with Liverpool coming, with Man United coming, with Man City coming, all this month, you did start to wonder where the points were going to come from.
Well, that's it, and that's another reason why I'm not missing it at the moment, because it's kind of, you look at it on and I know the game isn't played on paper, but you look at it and you think, oh blimey, where are the points going to come from now? Because we've missed our opportunities, and encapsulated probably in that Palace home game where we had so many chances in the first half and indeed in the second half to bury that game completely, and we end up losing 1-0, and you kind of, well, you know, and that's the sort of story of our season. So whilst Potter has revolutionised the style of football from Chris Hughton, at the same time, you know, we're not sticking it in the onion bag. That's not Potter's fault. You know, the players need to stand up. But March, that was an unforgivable miss, and Malpe, he should have bagged that one. That went straight to the keeper, and you're just like, you know. Anyway, who knows? I mean, yeah.
Obviously, the players, like everyone else, are in lockdown at the moment. There's a lot of them are getting criticism, although that's just because they're in ivory towers, for want of a better phrase, really, because they're seen to be these highly paid individuals and not seen to help. Marcus Rashford's come out and he's started this players together thing, which a lot of them are getting behind. But the Albion players have actually been doing a lot in the community. They've been donating money to local hospices, to the local homeless centres, to the NHS, to all sorts of things, and that they've been doing their bit to help. Also, you've seen the club's hierarchy. You've seen Paul Barber, you've seen Graham Potter and Dan Ashworth all take significant pay cuts in order to not furlough the staff and to not put Tony in hock, as it were. It's quite remarkable, really, isn't it, Marcus?
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. But the Albion have sort of led it from day one, basically. I think the Premier League get annoyed when the Albion come up with these ideas because it wasn't a Premier League idea. And, you know, fair credit to the Albion, unlike other football clubs, although I think Liverpool have reversed their decision now for the furlough. I think it's now Spurs and Newcastle that have. But Liverpool only did it about 2 minutes after Man United announcing that they weren't going to do it. So, yeah, you kind of... you know, you kind of think, well, yeah, you would have done had Man United probably not done the opposite. So, but as far as the Albion are concerned, I think they've been an absolute credit to the community, including, of course, ringing up the, you know, their vulnerable, you know, identified their old and vulnerable season ticket holders. And, you know, somebody I know, he recently got a call from Martin Perry, for example. And I think...
I wonder if Martin Perry got a call from Bruno.
Sorry, say that again.
Martin Perry got a call from Bruno, because I mean he's pretty old, Martin.
But Martin Perry actually rang a chap I know. So how strange. I think it was Laura Rafferty rang someone else's dad and stuff. So, you know, they're doing, you know, they're doing, you know, the Albion are probably going, you know, far and beyond. And of course, I think, you know, Tony's also gone on record recently as saying that even though some staff members have volunteered for a pay cut, he's actually said no. So, you know, it's yeah, and the players as well have done, you know, more than what they probably not should do, but more than what would most players are doing at the moment. Although I'm not buying into this giving Premier League footballers a kick in when there's all sorts of stuff going on with tax dodging companies and stuff, which is not for today, but it's kind of, you know, they're an easy target when there's other, you know, other organisations out there that could probably do more than just having an easy pop at Premier League football players.
Well, yeah, and you've got to look at the bigger picture as well, Marcus. As well, it's not just that the clubs at the top of the tree. You're looking down the pyramid, down to the well, through the Football League and down to the Isthmian League and further down the clubs. They're all part of their communities as well. And you know they're going to be the ones that are really struggling. And you know they're clubs that might not make it through this.
Yeah, absolutely, and it could be, you know, sorry to say it, but there might be a complete restructuring of the Football League in 2 or 3 years' time. I mean, a lot of those clubs, as you know, Kieran's probably better placed than myself to say this, Kieran Maguire, but you know, those further down the chain do need the gate money, whereas obviously Premier League clubs, okay, we're in that weird situation of not playing any games at the moment, and will they have to pay money back if they cancel the season? I'm not there for those decisions, but in the normal course of events, you know, clubs lower down the league need the gate money, whereas the Premier League clubs don't need the gate money. It's a nice thing to have, but I think even Kieran commented that Liverpool could, you know, give all their tickets away for free and still make, you know, the multi-billions that they do. So
yeah.
You know.
But anyway, Marcus, we're not here necessarily to talk about that. We're here to talk about the shirts of our years. Now, obviously, we did one with Phil Shelley last week, and he chose the 2004. There was some argument about the year. I only thought we had that shirt for 1 year, but we did actually have it for 2, the yellow one. What are your memories of that particular shirt?
The one that Phil had.
Yeah.
Oh well, basically, it would be Leon Knight scoring away at Oldham in that in a win at Oldham. I think it was the beginning of the season in that shirt. As you say, Maheta Malango in the Banana Man shirt. I remember you leaving me a note on my desk at work when you said today is the day of the banana when the shirt actually got released. That was probably in the days of when the club shop used to have 5 shirts and sold them, and then they'd say, "Yeah, the next stock is in October." Probably back in those days. And what else from that shirt? That's probably about it for that shirt as far as memories are concerned.
At Chesterfield, I mentioned like Richard Carpenter at Spurs.
We did at Spurs, didn't we? I can't forget now. Yeah, we did. Oh yeah, cool, Spurs. Yeah.
But you've got a different shirt for us to have a look at. So if you could just do the reveal for us now. I'm not going to do the descriptions.
Okay, all right. Do the reveal. I don't know if this is going to work.
There we go.
But this is the one that I thought for today would be quite a good one to show. There are others, which I've let other people do. So I've decided on this particular one, which the
93-94 home shirt.
94 stripes on the back as well. There's a reason for choosing this one, which I'll come to in a moment. I also have one of the away shirts as well, which is this one, which was an all-white affair with a nice sort of, pinstripe blue and white twin, which is a really nice away shirt. I think there was also a red one.
I used to think I call that trim the deck chair trim.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah, absolutely. So, it's sort of like polyester. Wouldn't like to run in it these days, but I'm a big lover of collars as well. You see, and it's got collars and a button. I like collars on a football shirt. It's one of my things. That's but anyway,
the first name that springs to my mind when I look at that shirt is Steve Foster.
Steve Foster, yes. Kurt Nogan. I mean, I've chose it because it was only for 1 season, this shirt. In the days of when you used to have shirts for 2 or 3 seasons. I mean, we have shirts every season nowadays, but back then you had them for a good 2 or 3 seasons. And this one was just for the one sort of 93-94 season. So
tell me, what are your memories of that particular season, Marcus?
Well, this is one which the season itself, the reason I've chosen it is because it was the first season where you were kind of almost still a football fan, Brighton Albion fan. No, which I'll come to in a moment. So probably better split it into 2. So you've got the football side, and the football side we was in, Division 3 old money or League 2 or whatever they used to call, whatever they call it, League 1. Sorry.
Let's call a spade a spade.
So you're in Division 3, we got relegated 2 years before. So we had the playoff final. Then we had that season we went down. Then we had a season where I think we finished about 8th. This particular season, we finished about, 15th, 16th. It wasn't a particularly vintage season on the football team, surprisingly, because we actually had some good players. We had Robert Codner, of course, who scored 10 goals that season. We had Dean Wilkins in midfield. We had Ian Chapman. We had Steve Foster, like you say. We had Kurt Nogan banging them in at the other end. We had Andy Kennedy, him of the goal scoring dance, and obviously being famous for being with Maria Whittaker at the time.
I'm just going to grab the book because I was going to.
You're going to grab the book. Shall I keep talking? All right, okay. So you had Nicky Bissett, of course,
which every Brighton supporter worth their salt should actually have. This is the book by Tim Carter, the Who's Who.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Not available from available from most charity shops probably, but there's also one in the Caxton when that reopens really soon. But in here there is a section in regards to debuts, and so let's have a look and see who made it. I know that one of them, Nicky Rust made his debut that season.
Yeah, he would have done. Yeah, Nicky Russ in goal. Mark Omerod, of course, was the understudy goalkeeper. You had people, as I say, it was actually not a bad. Stuart Mile, of course. He would have been part of the lineup. Stuart Tuck, Kevin McGarrigle, who 442 magazine said was going to be one for the future. Was going to play for
Paul Dickoff.
Stuff like that. Paul Dickoff, which I'll come to, who came on loan from Arsenal. So actually, it wasn't a bad side. But the football was only part of it. The reason I chose this season was because it was also a season where I remember being away at Fulham, and there was the anti-Barry Lloyd at the time sentiment, because he'd overseen sort of effectively, a relegation, 2 relegations almost. There was a clamour for Barry Lloyd to be sacked. So a lot of Seagulls fans were on Barry Lloyd's back at the time. Barry, out. I even remember Attila making, banners, and poor old Barry Lloyd had to walk from the changing rooms at Craven Cottage all the way past the away fans. They're all shouting, Barry out, Barry out. We won 1-0 that day, actually. Dean Wilkins scored, but there you go. And then something happened. Behind the scenes, I'm going to say it, 4A585. This was the season that a certain Bill Archer and Greg Stanley kind of took control of the club behind closed doors. It wasn't until the season after, when Samra started doing his digging, did he find out about the changes of the Articles of Association and things like that. On the pitch, however, a certain CEO, not off the pitch, but the club appointed a certain CEO who was obviously famous in the song Build a Bonfire, a certain Mr. David Bellotti. There were whispers of possibly the Total Valley sort of ground because they binned off the Shoreham Cement Works talks. There was lots of stuff going on in the High Court, but the football had sort of taken a bit of a dip. So what Stanley and Bellotti did was they got rid of Barry Lloyd in December, which sort of gave everybody a lift, and certainly Liam Brady took over in this season, and that all gave the playing side a bit of a lift. But of course, what was happening behind closed doors was all the other stuff, which is the lead up to sort of the seasons that came with Hereford and going down in the York City riots and everything. But this season was probably the start of all that happening before the Albion fans knew it, because that came out later with the Goals Eye, Paul Samra, Ed Basford, etc., all the people who sort of were starting to get a bit closer to the club and starting to inspect the accounts and things like that. But this was the season. So I've chosen this shirt because it was sort of the last time of being probably a football fan of Brighton Hove Albion, where you just want to get the manager out and the new manager was appointed. But of course, when you read your history books now, and Tim Carter's update for his Seagulls, the story of Brighton Hove Albion FC is actually quite interesting when you read the last page. And of course, this was before he knew. But when you read the last page, it actually says, at the end of a dramatic season, both on and off the pitch, supporters found it hard to believe that their Albion had been so close to folding just 6 months early, only to be saved by its greatest ever benefactor, Greg Stanley. Yeah, I'm glad you nearly should spit your beer out at that point. With the Golston buzzing once again, the cycle of decline had at last been reversed. Now, that's in print, and this would have been about 93, 94, obviously at the end of the season when it came out. I think now if you revise this now, you certainly wouldn't be writing a statement like that. So
Tim has written many, many wise words, but I think he might regret those ones, possibly.
Well, it's not his fault, because at the time, of course, when you take it as a snapshot in time, that's exactly how Brighton fans felt at that point. Like, oh, great, Greg Stanley's on board. Of course, you didn't realise that, Bill Archer had paid £56.25 or whatever it was. Yes, they paid off the High Court debt, but obviously they saddled the club with loads of debt, etc., which we all know and is well documented. But certainly at the time, it was very much a case of Lloyd had gone, hooray, because people were against him. Liam Brady took over. Liam Brady, brilliant. He signed Jimmy Case. He got Jerry Ryan in as his assistant manager. The form on the pitch took a lift. We got Paul Dickoff on loan. We even got Mark Flats on loan. So the Arsenal connection was paying off. But of course, we all know what happened, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years down the line.
I know. I mean, it's a story that we've obviously on the road we've gone into in great depth over the years, and a story which you couldn't make it up half of it really, and but it's something. I'm certainly not glad that we went through it, but I think it's something that makes it's something that stays with you, and it's something that you kind of think, yeah, this is my club, and you know the way that we stood together and we fought against it, and you've seen other clubs that have not necessarily had that unique bond between the supporters, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of galvanised. The fans were galvanised against sort of getting Barry Lloyd out. I remember that quite clearly. And then, of course, everybody sort of backed off and then realised that actually, there was a more, common enemy, I guess, and one right at the top.
Barry Lloyd's tenure at the club. I mean, it's one that I think could possibly be rewritten, because the stories I've heard and stuff that he was trying to do behind the scenes that
that's
that
what
aren't necessarily common knowledge.
That's right. That's right. We didn't know.
He saw what was going on.
He did. He was in the boardroom. I mean, Harty himself has sort of gone on record as saying that, there was a time when, and it would have been around this time, where Barry Lloyd offered one of the directors out. I'm not sure which one it was, but offered to sort of jackets off, let's take this outside kind of thing. We didn't know at the time the constraints that Barry Lloyd was working under, because he would have seen that, because he was also made sort of a director as well. So he sort of had a seat on the board, and then that seat got took away from him, and David Bellotti was appointed by Archer and Stanley. Yeah, and at the time, I remember David Bellotti's programme note saying he was going to walk around the pitch and talk to the fans, and and get the feeling of the club and get it all back into, and of course, well, we all know. we all know what happened.
What happened next?
Well, yeah, quite. Well, that's for someone else's shirt of the week or shirt of the year.
Well, yeah, and of course there will be a few more of these coming up over the lockdown weeks.
It's a not a forgotten season, but it's sort of a kind of a shirt consigned to, not consigned to the dustbin, but it's one that people don't remember that well, and a season that really didn't pull up any trees. But actually, when you look at it behind the scenes, it was kind of the start of everything that was to follow.
I'm not going to lie, Mark, because I've been looking at that shirt for quite a while now, and it's making me a little bit cross-eyed.
Yeah, I actually like it.
This is why we need a green screen or something. But I
do like it. Like it.
Okay, well let's we're gonna have to finish it there. But what are your hopes and for it? Have you got any idea of what you'd like to see happen with the season?
That's a good. I did like Phil's idea of the sort of starting with a 50% reduction in points. I don't know what the answer is. I think personally, they have to finish the season as and when it's safe to do so, and then you kind of almost have to then readjust, the seasons to come. There is going to have to be an adjustment soon anyway, because if the Qatar World Cup happens, then everybody's going to have to stop, because I think that's being played in the winter time anyway. So there is going to have to be a season so it is, the football season is going to get interrupted anyway for the Qatar World Cup. So they kind of can plan now, the next year, 2 years time or whatever, when the Qatar World Cup happens, that there is this. So yeah, I think they have to finish and then see what happens, the season after. Do you play it over a certain amount of months, or do you not? I don't know what the answer is, but I do think
I think we're all scratching our heads with it a little bit. I mean, Paul Barber's been very, very, very good, very open about his thoughts about what could or should or maybe happen, but no one really knows at this stage, and I guess it's probably not the most important thing for us to worry about at the moment. It's at the end of the day, as long as people are staying healthy, staying home, doing what they have to do to keep themselves and everyone else safe. That's all we can do at this moment in time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Which so that's why I'm not really, giving the football much of a thought at the moment, because it's, there's absolutely, well, there's no point right now, because you can't go. So
Well, we'll be back in the studio, no doubt, when it does happen, and we'll probably be actually gung ho for it at that point, I think.
oh yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
we're looking forward to obviously getting you back in the studio, Marcus. And I'm sure, well, Andy Bass will probably be doing one of these shortly. God knows what he's going to choose. Probably a Barnet shirt.
He could do well. To be fair, he's probably got some with Dean ones hanging about, so he could always wear one of those.
He's got some great ones. But
Probably going to be Ham, isn't it?
if you're interested, if you're watching this and you're interested in taking part of Shirts of Our Years, please contact us at the Albion on Twitter or on our Facebook page, and it'd be lovely to have a chat and talk about some more classic Albion shirts. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.